Welcome. Would you like to introduce your name, course, year, and university?
Sure. So my name is Kwilole, and I studied public relations at Bournemouth University between the years of 2009 and 2013.
Can you tell us what country you are from?
Yes, I am originally from Zambia. I was born in Zambia in the Copperbelt province, and then I came to the UK when I was 12 in 2003.
Could you remind us of the course you're currently studying?
I am not currently studying.
Can you remind us of the course you studied at university?
Sure. I studied public relations within the media school at Bournemouth University.
Why did you choose your course?
That's an interesting question. I think the course chose me. For the longest time, I wanted to do journalism because at the time, so if you recall 2008, Obama was elected. And I thought, okay, the next time history is made, I want to be putting pen to paper and I wanted to be a journalist. And I applied for journalism at different universities, including Bournemouth. And then I got an email back from Bournemouth offering me an unconditional offer to study public relations because they thought I would be fantastic at it. I think they made the right call. So yeah, that's how I ended up in PR. In fact, I didn't actually know what PR was when I joined, like when I came to the university. So that was interesting, but I learned about it and it was fine.
Was your course a 3 or 4 year course?
It was a 4-year course with an option for an industrial placement, which was one of the things that really attracted me to it, actually, because I thought, what if I can get, the experience while in university, then it would hopefully make me more employable after university. And to be honest, it has. I haven't struggled to get a job after university. I've got every job I've gone for. So I'm quite fortunate in that regard.
What have you thought of your course now that you've finished?
PR as a course?
Your course at Bournemouth University, the PR course.
Yeah, I think it was great. I think it had just the right balance of kind of practical, but also, getting into the weeds of the theory around PR. I remember my very first essay that I had to write at Bournemouth was, is PR an art or science? And I remember that because I thought, I don't even know what PR is. So how can I tell you whether it's an art or science? Let's start with what is PR. But it was interesting. I ultimately, I think if I recall correctly, I argued that it was both, that there were aspects that were scientific, but also there were aspects that were an art. And I think I got a 2-1, which wasn't bad considering I didn't even know what PR was. And then after that, yeah, it was a mix of kind of group activities, individual essays, and then obviously the industrial placement year in year 3, and then the dissertation in my final year. Yeah, I think it's a well-balanced course to get you ready to go and do PR in the world.
Did you do a placement year?
I did, yes.
Can you tell us about your placement year, where it was, how long it was, and what it was like working there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very fortunate. Actually, I remember for the longest time, I struggled to get a placement. I don't know why, I probably didn't put in as much effort as I should have. So I applied to different companies, and then eventually I saw a posting for GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, IP placements, they're called, so industrial placements students. And I applied, and it was, to be honest, for me, it was the perfect role because it combined not only kind of the PR degree that I was doing, but also the charity work that I do. So separately in my full-time job, aside from that, I also run a charity for children with HIV. And this organization was called Vive Healthcare. It was a joint venture between GlaxoSmithKline and Pfizer and Shionogi, all pharmaceutical companies. And yeah, it only focuses on HIV. It's still going now, the pharma companies that kind of reports into like GSK financials. But yeah, I thought it was a perfect mix. And I did that for a year. And then I was fortunate enough that they wanted me to stay on a bit longer. So I actually stayed on beyond the year and then went back to university. So I kind of missed out on summer, but, positives is I had a bit of extra money, so, and a bit of extra experience as well. And I was the first industrial placement student that they had. So it was a great opportunity because I could shape the role. And in fact, when they went to hire the next me, I was involved in that process, and I hired her, a girl called Sophie. She's fantastic. And we ended up going to Zambia together on the charity work that I do. So yeah, it was great.
For a student who's currently in college and or sixth form, what do you think the best A-levels / subjects are for your course?
For public relations, it's a good one because obviously I did stuff that's really wasn't related to PR. But having done the course, I would say that probably English language would be a positive because, you know, with PR, there's a lot of writing involved. So yeah, and I now know it wasn't an offer when I was at school, but media studies is something that is available to students now. So again, anything to do with media would be good, because when you work in PR, you need to be all consuming with media. You need to love media. You need to love reading different types of publications, whether it's like broadsheet, or whether it's like specific industry magazines, or like just like BBC, Al Jazeera. You need to be very familiar with the different media outlets.
Hey, if we now go into your experience at Bournemouth University,
yes.
Can you tell us the best and worst things about studying at Bournemouth University? Starting off with the worst.
Starting off with the worst. I was really dreading that question because, to be honest, I don't think, when I look back at my time at Bournemouth, I had a really good time. And I'm not just saying that. It was a good experience. I would say the worst thing, if I'm being honest, probably student loans, which really isn't something that Bournemouth can control. But I remember even now, you know, when I see it coming out of my paycheck, I think, for goodness sake, why did I go to university? But yeah, so I'd say that's kind of the worst thing. And also because no one told me at the time, I don't know if you knew this, that at university, there's a lot of self-learning. So half the time, I'm thinking, why am I paying? And at that time, when I was at university, we were only paying about 3,000. Now I think the fees are like £9,000. And even then at 3,000, I was thinking, why am I paying someone when I'm basically teaching myself? So yeah, but it's a good experience, I think. In terms of the best thing, I would say it's the opportunity to meet different people. I have a lot of really good friends that I met through my university life that I'm still really close with now. And it's having that opportunity to just meet people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different ways of working as well, you know? So yeah, I enjoyed that aspect probably the most.
While you were at university and you were living, could you tell us what it was like to be in an accommodation and or house while living as a student at Bournemouth University?
So I'm a bit of a control freak. So I hated halls. And also I'm not big on partying, but that's a personal preference, but I know some people are. So sometimes I think, especially when you have an assignment due and you're in halls, that obviously that's first year. I don't know if people stay on longer, but for me, 1 year was enough. So it was great from the perspective of getting to meet new people, because when you come out of college or sixth form, I did sixth form, it's a very different experience, university, you know, there's a lot of self-sufficiency that no one really prepares you for, I think. So having the opportunity to be with like-minded people who were in the same boat as me and didn't, you know, understand what the hell was going on was very helpful to just lean on each other a little bit from that regard. The downsides, as I said, bit of a control freak, didn't like the messy dishes, and didn't like the sometimes all night partying, but it's, you know, got through it. So yeah, it was part of the experience, I suppose.
If you're now going to the Bournemouth area, can you tell us what it was like to live as a student and walk around, be in the area, obviously too as a woman and or girl in the area? Could you tell us what it was like? Was it safe? Was it not safe? Could you get to your shops easily? Was the night, like obviously you said you weren't a drinker, so did you go into any of the nightlife?
I did. People are very surprised by this. As you can probably tell from my energy on this call, I am the life and soul of every party. So even though I don't drink, I am very hyper at parties and love to party and I love to dance. So I did go out like clubbing with friends, and both, you know, that I had met on the course, but also from halls and stuff. And we used to go, I don't remember the name of it, to be honest, but there were quite a few clubs in town that we would go to that had quite good options for everyone, a mix of different types of music that we would go to. So that was quite nice. In terms of kind of safety, etc., difficult for me to say, I guess, from my perspective. I was one of the few people that actually had a car when I was at university. So I had my little Renault. Then after my placement, I treated myself to a Mini Cooper. And so I drove around a lot everywhere. So from that perspective, I always felt safe because I was in the comfort of my car. And then also because I didn't drink, I was designated driver for everyone, right? So yeah, from that perspective, it was fine. I think if I was looking at it from other people's perspectives that I was with and lived with, I don't think anyone particularly felt unsafe. There were quite a few females in my block, and we would go out, on our own sometimes, and yeah, it was absolutely fine. And I remember I lived in Cranbourne. I don't know if it's still there, house, and right across is the Asda, I think. Yeah, so it was just like a 5-10 minute walk, and I know there's like an underpassage, if I recall correctly, and it was fine, like there was nothing scary or dodgy. I felt safe. Yeah, to answer your question.
What general advice would you give to students about to study at university?
What general advice?
General advice.
I think be open to the unexpected, because that, for me, that was the hardest thing. Like I said, there was, for example, I had this misconception, rightly or wrongly, that I would be either in lectures all the time or in what they call seminars all the time. And that wasn't the case. There was a lot of independent study. And that took a while to shift from going into sixth form, where, it was quite structured. I think sixth form kind of prepares you for that, but not massively. And yeah, there's a lot of self-sufficiency. You get out of it what you put into it. The cliche is true. So, I know I had, in my final year, I got to a stage where after my placement and after my 2 years, I knew that even if I did relatively okay on my dissertation, I would still get past the 2-1. So I just spent my final year not doing much, to be honest. So yeah, my advice is be prepared for the unexpected and make new friends. I think it's a great place to make new friends and learn from different people, different experiences. And depending on the type of course that you're in as well, obviously, like I said, I studied public relations, just embrace it, embrace everything about it. I think you do need to genuinely love to do PR. You need to genuinely love the media. You need to understand the landscape. You need to understand how different stakeholders, work within organizations and how organizations carry out their activities. So whereas I imagine for, let's say, a science-based course, you've got the advantage, which we didn't have before, of YouTube. So if there's something that you don't understand that's very scientific, I'm sure there are a lot of YouTube videos that could explain that. So it's changing the mindset and being quite enterprising in your approach of how you approach university, I would say.
What advice do you give to students about to study at Bournemouth University?
At Bournemouth specifically, don't spend all your time on the beach. It's tempting, even in winter. But no, on a more serious note, I suppose, it's a great city. I think it's or town, maybe. I think it's to a town. It's a great place to be. It could work on its diversity in terms of more ethnicities. But aside from that, it's a nice place, and university itself. I don't know. There's nothing bad to say about Bournemouth. It's a great place.
What advice would you give to students about to study your course at university?
My course, yeah. If you're thinking about studying public relations, don't do what I did and leave the industrial placement till the last minute because you're like, yeah, I'll get a job. I mean, ultimately I did, but it's pretty stressful when you're trying to do it last minute because at the time, I don't know if they've changed it, but at the time, if you didn't get a placement, you failed the course. So leaving it last minute, as I came to realize, was not the best strategy because it just added unnecessary pressure, I would say. I'm a person that doesn't really stress, but even for me, it was getting to a point where I was like, should I start stressing about this? Because I don't know. All my lecturers were stressed for me. So yeah, it wasn't an ideal scenario. So definitely don't think about your placement year as, oh, it's year 3. Start networking, like LinkedIn is a great tool now. So if you know that there's an organization that you have your eye on that you would want to do a placement, start networking early on because that could definitely make the difference. That would be number 1. Number 2 would be absorb the media because PR and media go hand in hand. I think one of my lecturers said, and I don't know how true it is, but we have to trust them because they're lecturers, that most of the news that we read, 80%, something like 80% or 90%, quite a high percentage of the stories that you read come from public relations. So with that statistic alone, like you need to understand the media landscape and understand, the different types of press. And then, make friends and know who the smart kids are so you can get good grades when you do group activities. That's what I did.
You chose going to university over an apprenticeship / going right into work. What path do you make this choice?
Now, what path would I make?
What path would you change your choice?
No, I don't think so.
So why did you choose university over an apprenticeship?
I think for me, my parents are doctors. So like to be doctors, they had to go to university. So for me personally, apprenticeship wasn't even something I considered, to be honest. It was growing up, it was always university, and my siblings as well, we all went to university. So that's my truth. That being said, though, I think there is merit in apprenticeships in the sense that people need to recognize their strengths. If you're not academic, there's no point forcing, academia on everyone. I think there are some great apprenticeships out there that offer the same opportunities. And in fact, if I look at it from, and I hope she won't mind me saying this, but when I joined my last agency that I worked at, not the one I'm at now, there was a lady in that agency who never went to university, and she was above me. 2 reasons. One, she started earlier. She hadn't wasted. It's not too much of a waste, but she had a career fast track in effect, because she didn't do 4 years of university, so she was ahead in that regard, like career wise. Then she also she doesn't have student loan debts, right? So there's that. That being said, though, she missed out on the other aspects that it can offer. So, for example, when I talked about the theory of PR, like I understood PR, like I understood why things happen the way they happen, and she didn't. But between us, we could teach each other, I suppose. I think it was just easier for me because I had studied the theory and then went on to put it in the practice. So yeah, in short, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I personally would still go to university because, you know what, we're going to work for the rest of our lives. So it's quite nice to have that break of just partying a little bit, doing a bit of essays, getting to meet new people and going from there.
So now if we go into the life after university, so obviously you've done your 3, 4, 5 years, you've done your placement year, and now you've just finished university. What is life like after university?
I was fortunate in that as soon as I finished university, I got a job within a couple of months. And that was twofold. I really do think that having the placement and the experience did help. So I would encourage anyone who is looking at a degree, whether it's, part of your program, or even if you do like work experience as part of like on the side, to do it in like summer months or something, because it does make a difference. Because I think a lot of the challenges that I was hearing that other people were facing who didn't have an industrial placement where employers saying, but you don't have experience. Then it becomes a catch-22, right? Because it's like, how can I get experience without experience? And then they kind of get into this rabbit hole. Whereas I was fortunate in that I had the experience, and it was just a case of applying the knowledge that I had obtained, both, as I say, from university, to say, you know, I've worked on these theoretical projects. And then actually I've also got actual experience working for a pharmaceutical company. And now I want to work within the pharmaceutical team at the agency that I first worked at out of university was Pegasus in Brighton. And yeah, so I was very fortunate in that regard. And I do think having the placement helped.
You run your own charity.
I did.
Would you like to tell us about the charity, what it is, how it started?
Yes.
Things you do, and your social medias?
Yes, sure. Gosh, that's a lot of questions. So let's break it down. Okay, so the charity and how it started. So I am chairperson for a charity called Funsani. And that was started by my mother, Dr. Kwilole van der Boom Chisuse. And it was started in 2002. Unfortunately, the circumstances for starting it are quite sad, but then, you know, equally something great has come out of it, I think. So unfortunately, she lost her mom, her brother, and her sister to HIV. And I think she just got fed up. So she's a doctor, as I said before. She wanted to do something to help alleviate kind of the impact of HIV within Zambia, her native country. So she set up the orphanage, which is where her sister used to live. And through the years, we have had 15 children who have lived at the home and grown up there. We also have partnerships with a school. So the orphanage is in Kitwe in Zambia, which is in the Copper Belt, so in the north, if you picture it here. And then in Livingston, which is at the south, we have a partnership with a school that has about 1,000 children. So through our partnership network, we then provide additional support to orphaned and vulnerable children as well.
So I like students have what I like to call a free for all. You can say what you want about what you like. You can say something smart, you can say something dumb. Literally, the floor is yours.
Say something smart or something dumb. You didn't warn me about this. What should I say? Stay in school, kids. Yeah, drugs are bad. Yeah, I generally don't know what to say here, Calvin.
That's all right. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to either. If you feel like we've gone through everything students need to know, then that's perfect. Yeah,
I think so. I think I just approach life in general as a canvas. So, you know, I learn from my mistakes, and I know it's really hard for people, particularly when we get into like real life situations. It's something that I talk to my teams about a lot. I used to have this prayer that my mom had at home, and she sent it to me a couple of weeks ago to remind me, because she found it. It's the Serenity Prayer. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like, God grant me the serenity to change the things that I can change. I'll probably butcher it here. To accept the things I can't change. Sorry, the other way around. So God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So for me, it's, you know, I feel like, particularly with the year that we've just had with COVID, none of us could have predicted COVID or its impact. And I know that it's been really tough on a lot of people. And the way I have personally gotten through it is to look at it as, okay, I can't change this. What can I do from a professional, like from a personal point of view, what can I do to better myself and make sure I stay in like a nice mental state? Right. But then also professionally, what can I do to support my teams to make sure that they feel supported throughout this process? And that's something that I can change, right? And the things that I can't change, when we're getting the vaccine. So that's, you know, it's just, okay, wait for my turn. And if I want to take it, I take it. And it's been an interesting journey, I would say. The one thing that I did do, and I know a lot of people took this on board, I did two things that I'm proud of in this. One is I started investing. I took the opportunity to actually just learn about investing. So I invest in lots of different types of things. And I also took the opportunity to learn how to bake banana bread, because prior to that, I didn't know how to bake. So yeah, I would say treat life like a blank canvas, be open to change, and don't see it as a scary thing, but use it as an opportunity to do something great, hopefully, even if it is just making banana bread. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I am plugged in.